Welcome to the Spent the Rent podcast. I am your host, Patty Rose. My guest today is Springfield City Councilor Leonard Stoehr. Leonard, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Patty. It's great to be back. I had a great time the last time as well.
Yeah, this is really cool. This is one of the best things that I get to do is I get to meet people like yourself. We've been crossing paths over the last few years, with the work that you've been doing with the Springfield City Council in Springfield, Oregon. Most notably, Johannes Tadeo put on a cool event recently that we were both at. That was the Safer 25th anniversary celebration. And that was a great day. And yeah.
Live music. I mean, lots of great food. I mean, there was nothing not to like about that event.
No, it was a good one. So we're here today because this is kind of an impromptu thing. We really didn't have a lot of time to prepare for this because you called me basically yesterday and said, hey, I've got some big news. I'd like to kind of speak directly to the citizens of Springfield. What do you think about having me on? So
I really appreciate you accommodating me on extremely short notice,
yeah.
Less than 24 hours. That's that's the appeal and sort of the I guess the charm of your show is that you are able to turn on a dime, and
yeah,
I appreciate that. So hey, Thomas Hyura,
Thomas Hyura, yeah, he wanted to say, hey, woo, Leonard.
Thanks.
And then also that the state of the city was great. I haven't had a chance to digest it completely, but Sean Van Gordon does a great job.
Yeah. I made a short statement at the end.
Cool.
At the end of the State of the City address, just about housing and about homeless issues.
Right.
So yeah,
I'll check it out. Yeah, that's the cool thing is that stuff is accessible after the fact as well. You know, it's in the middle of the week and all that kind of stuff. But so now we got some really big news. How long have you been on the city council?
6 years now.
6 years.
I was starting on my 7th year right now. And yeah, I do want to let everybody know that unless something changes in very short order, it looks like due to a series of circumstances, I'm going to be leaving Springfield with great regret and with a heavy heart. Yeah. I'm going to have to be chasing a job down to the Atlanta area.
Yeah, Atlanta. You told me that. So are you going to make a rap album? Like
yes.
Get a Lamborghini and
that's exactly right. That's the job I'm going to be making. I'm going to be freestyling and kicking it hardcore with trucker songs.
That's good. That's good. It's funny that trucker songs could possibly actually be rap in today's world. That's a revelation.
I think there was what was that Florida Georgia line? I think there was there was a group that actually had sort of a trucker rap song.
Yeah,
I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, so this is big. I mean, you're stepping down from the city council pretty much effectively like real soon. This is going to be something that could be coming within the next week or so, right? I mean,
yes. I think I'm going to announce it on at the end of the city council meeting on Monday.
Right.
And again, I had every intention of finishing out my term here as a city councilor and was looking forward to representing my constituents here in the city. And it was a series of circumstances that led me to go back to the truck. I think a trucker Len's going to ride again here.
That's pretty wild. So, this we'll have two vacancies. I mean, I know Damian Pitts is not seeking re-election. Two that I know of, yours and Damian Pitts, and we don't know what the other people are going to do.
I think Damian's replacement, Michelle, has already been.
Okay. Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So there's going to be one.
Right. And then Victoria Doyle is going to be the replacement for Marilee Woodrow in Ward 5.
Right. So there'll be one replacement, one vacancy that the city council will have to appoint. And this is going to, potentially change the balance of the council. So I guess my first question would be, what would you like to see in a replacement, for the candidate?
I want, this is going to sound sort of, but I would like to have a replacement who stands up for workers in Springfield.
Right.
I want just somebody who would be willing to advocate and go to bat for the people who would otherwise be disenfranchised and unrepresented.
Right.
At the level of the council.
I know that people they scoff at the idea of representation appointments, right? A lot of times where I just would like to see somebody from the Latinx community propped up and elevated and have that voice, be heard more. And so I think that we need somebody from the Latinx community on the council. Obviously, we want the most qualified person for the position, regardless of what box they check. But I just see a continual growing community in the Latinx community in Springfield, and I just feel like there needs to be that voice being heard more.
I would love it if you could find a Latinx counselor for the city
for that ward. Yeah.
And, if we could find one in Ward 4, then I would be jumping in with both feet to back them up. I'm unfortunately not going to be part of the process of the appointment.
Yeah. So if anybody listening, I mean, this is going to be big. If you're in Springfield and you are someone or know someone that would like to run for city council, this is going to be your chance to put your name in the hat. Yep. This is something that unfortunately in Eugene and Springfield, we've had a lot of experience with over the last couple of years of the appointment process for many different reasons. We had the mayor in Springfield step down. We had the recall in Eugene. Now we have you stepping down. Obviously, when the mayor stepped down, Mayor Lundberg, Sean Van Gordon was then appointed to the mayor position. And so that was opened up a vacancy. And so it seems like this is a common thread.
Well, there was a charter amendment that was proposed at the grassroots level that would have made any vacancy in the council subject to a vote by the public. And I completely support that.
Yeah.
I think it should be done.
Yeah, I think so too, especially with what we're seeing now, especially like in the Eugene situation where there's the recall where it's in my opinion done for political reasons, and if the will of the people is going to be ignored, unfortunately now we see in Congress a much different issue where you have a person that after they were elected comes out that they're complete fraud in George Santos, right? And so what do you do then? Because that was the will of the people with the votes, but they were voting on something that was represented.
Can I just say that I've seen the pictures. George Santos is hotly denying that he was ever a drag queen, and he is a damned lovely woman. I mean, why is he not embracing that, and why is he not owning it? Because I think that maybe his there's a contingent of his colleagues in Congress that would just I guess that would object to the fact that he had actually participated in drag events.
Yeah,
but
it's just bad for business for them.
I mean, those people, I mean, they're not they're not in favor of the gay community at all. So they're what it is this whole idea of a drag event like we had down at Old Nick's in Eugene. It becomes a proxy for homophobia,
right?
And so I think that what we have to do is we just have to at some point we have to stop worrying about the people who are just trying to parse the difference between gay issues and trans issues and drag issues, and just embrace the whole community.
Yeah, it's that whole the George what is his name? George I want to say Soros, but that's Santos. Yeah. It's a mess. It's a mess because the voters voted him in, and he completely lied on everything, on every qualification about going to colleges and about not doing drag apparently. I mean, and again, it's not, I don't have any issue with people that do drag at all, and but it's interesting how there's a misrepresentation of somebody. I just want this happens on a national level much more. I mean, Congress is a small position, actually, is what I found out. I mean, I thought it was such a big deal, but it is a lot of times very small. But what's blatantly obvious in his situation is he basically the seat was bought. I mean, there's monies exchanged, there's campaign finance laws that look like they've been broken
overtly,
and it's so blatant that it's all about the numbers and it's not about any type of integrity or ethics or any of that stuff.
No, none. And I think those are the real issues here. The real issues are that the election was pretty openly bought by donors to the Santos campaign, and now they're backing and filling because he's apparently been caught in some lies on his resume and some degrees that he didn't have.
I think it would be a shorter list to tell the Times that he told the truth. That's the crazy part about this whole thing.
Right. But really, I mean, if you talk, I remember Trent Lott at one time. He was the majority leader of the Senate, and somebody asked him, I mean, is there graft in the Senate? And the word graft even then was sort of quaint. He said, the patronage system is the American way. And it enraged me when he said that, because I thought, wait a minute, he's saying that you can be bought off as a congressman. And I thought, then it occurred to me, I'm getting angry at Trent Lott for telling the truth. I mean, it is the system right now, and you are pretty much just catering not to your constituents or to the people who voted for you. You're catering to the people who donated to your campaign.
Right.
And when you're a donor-based campaign, then it's going to be a lot less of a representative system. And that's a problem.
And that's and that's why I prefer to talk mostly about local stuff, because I am actually pretty confident in a lot of stuff that's happening, especially in Springfield. And I know that there's some massive changes in Eugene. Next week, I'm going to be talking to shelter care, and we'll talk about the, Governor Kotek's emergency declaration on homelessness, and how that might actually, what that's going to look like, what that's going to do for our local community, how it's going to help maybe with some funding and allocation of land, of county owned land. I know that that's something that's being considered, where they can use some land and repurpose it so that maybe they can house some people. And so there's some really exciting things happening locally. The national stuff just gives me a headache, and I still pay attention to it, but I have to just be able to turn my brain off to it and then just see what we're doing locally that's actually productive.
Yeah. And there are some encouraging things that have happened. I mean, during Commissioner Bernie's term, he got the Patrician Mobile Home Park bought by the residents of the mobile home park. They were going to be turned out on the street, probably never to live in Springfield again because of the taxes,
just
and
the cost.
And the cost of living here. And he arranged this opportunity that is now being proposed at the statewide level, thanks to Senator Manning, that would give any mobile home park residents who are being displaced the opportunity to buy their mobile home park, which I think is absolutely just and fair.
And I definitely had him on the podcast. We talked about that, and I mean, it was a big deal. I cannot believe that Joe Bernie wasn't reelected. 29 votes. I'm almost positive that was the number that he lost by.
Well, I think we're going back to the same problem that we had with the Santos campaign, which is that Lovell was backed by some very powerful forces.
Sure.
I mean, he was there. When I was out canvassing for Joe, I mean, there were immense, and this is very symbolic, these immense signs. We were putting out lawn signs that were like, I mean, you could definitely hold it in the picture right now. And the Lovell signs were the size of Buicks, it seemed like. And so at that point, you question again who benefits. I mean, who benefits from these immense amounts of money that are being spent on?
Well, and time will tell, and I'm definitely going to be calling it out. But I know that there'll be some stuff happening in the Lane County Commissioner debates that are, David Lovell is going to be thinking about number one first himself. And so we'll see how that happens. But, so you have championed workers' rights. That's been something that you've been fighting for forever. And there's a few issues nationally that you wanted to talk about with labor issues. And so we'll jump into them. You're going to I don't know a lot about these. Labor is not my strong suit, but you have helped me learn a tremendous amount in the last, especially few months, honestly. And the last episode that I had with you, I learned a lot because it forces me to do research. And I say research, but I want to give a shout out before I ask these questions to the local journalists. I am not a journalist. I'm a podcaster. This is entertainment. We're just having conversations. A lot of the stuff that I am able to bring to the show, I find from, Register Guard. I know that it's not the same as it once was, but there's still some great people working and doing some great stuff. And there's some, like when I interviewed the kid that was lowering the voting age to 16, Devin, that, I found the Oregon Capitol Chronicle And there, I mean, there's some just really good people working across the state.
Going to the newsroom at the Register Guard right now is kind of a sad experience because you've got like one city reporter in the corner of this immense cavernous space that used to be full of reporters.
Wow.
I mean, it's like a lone voice in the wilderness.
It's unfortunate. I mean, the good thing is there's independent journalists or whatever you want to call it, but also, I mean, there's different. I do have a lot of respect for the people that are doing it with they take that careful approach where you're like, we need to make sure that this is all accurate, and they do a pretty good job. I've seen a lot of consistency with our local journalists. So I just want to give a shout out to them. And I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for them. So I want to give a shout out. But, let's get into it. One of the first issue is a U.S. Supreme Court decision that's due in June. This is the Teamsters Local 174 versus the Glacier Northwest.
Right.
And creates a union liability for financial impact of strike. Explain to me what this is all about.
All right. Well, Glacier Northwest is, if I'm not mistaken, a concrete company. And so the people that were working and striking over there were hauling mixers, hauling cement mixers. And so Glacier Northwest was impacted economically by this strike. I mean, obviously, if your trucks are not running and they're not delivering the cement, the concrete, then as the concrete company, you're not going to be making any money. And so they didn't like that. It's very rare that an employer enjoys being struck. But they took it a step further than most employers do. They challenged the right of Teamsters 174 to strike and sued the local for the economic impact of the strike. And so John Roberts, the Chief Justice, who was originally considered a conservative on the court, he said that there is a difference. This is during arguments. He said that there's a difference between an economic impact on the employer, which, and he said correctly, that's generally the idea behind a strike in the first place, and breaking the employer. I mean, bombing the facility or deliberately sabotaging the equipment and that kind of thing.
Right.
He said it's like the difference between letting milk go bad and killing the cow. That was the analogy that he gave. And yeah, I hope that that's going to be the opinion that prevails. But unfortunately, John Roberts is now like a crazy leftist on the court. I mean, you've got 5 justices that are unfortunately just pretty much united as a block against workers. So I'm afraid that the decision is going to go against Local 174, and it's going to cripple the ability of an employee of a union. And
that'll set precedent that would,
Oh yeah.
And then another one that,
precedent.
the UPS contract negotiations will be this year. And that's basically that decision in the Supreme Court, Local 174 versus Glacier Northwest will probably affect the UPS one, correct?
Yes.
And so that would limit their ability to strike. Can you explain that kind of more thoroughly?
It would be up to the court to establish when that decision actually goes into effect. But if it's due in June, then that would be before the expiration of the UPS contract, which is going to be at the end of July of this year. And there are some very large and urgent issues that need to be addressed in the new UPS contract. One of them is whether the 2-tier wage system for UPS drivers is going to remain in effect, that is more or less dividing drivers against each other. It's a time-honored tradition to divide and conquer with the employers, that if they can get drivers arguing and pitted against each other, then they have to worry much less about the united front that a union can provide.
Right.
So that's one of the issues. One of the issues is part-time wages. Part-timers are reporting to work at 4:00 in the morning, working for about 5 hours, and they're making, in some cases, less than a new employee at a fast food restaurant.
Yeah.
They're working, their current wage is $16.75, I think. And it's, that's $1 below what KFC is paying in Eugene right now.
Right.
Starting wage.
Which is wild. Yeah.
So anyway, to get back to the strike, there are 2 potential obstacles, to 2 potential roadblocks. One of them is this pending decision against 174. And number 2 is the possibility that President Biden is going to order the UPS workers back to work.
Yeah, and
he's not going to allow them to strike.
I mean,
because
and
of
I understand,
economic
because when
security.
you're UPS or USPS and you're delivering potentially medicine, and that's the world we live in now. There is a point where it's handcuffed. It just sucks because it's such a needed service.
Yeah, in 1997 there was a UPS strike, and the thinking was, I mean, the company was, dare I say it, pretty cocky going into that strike, because they thought, number one, the President Clinton at that point, they thought President Clinton would never allow the employees to strike, because of the economic urgency of keeping the wheels running at
Right.
UPS. And number two, there had recently been a one-day strike at UPS, that was dedicated to breaking the company's expansion of the 70-pound weight limit, and it was called the 100-weight program, and that strike was very poorly organized and it fell apart pretty quickly. So they thought, well, if the Teamsters couldn't even mount a successful one-day strike, then how is that? How are they going to be able to manage a strike that's going to be comprehensive and nationwide for the long term? And they found out. I mean, it was a very successful strike, and the UPS was losing immense amounts of money per day. Nobody was crossing the lines, and as a result, it was the best contract in the history of the Teamsters.
Yeah, and I mean, the idea that you
relationship.
could stop someone from striking, and I understand when there's like I said, a service that is necessary, but that's why striking has its impact. And like you had said before, it's like this is one of the most democratic things that you can do. Peacefully protesting what's happening is essentially what it is.
Exactly.
Not a destruction of property, even not a just basically I'm going to stand for my rights, and I refuse to do what you want until
it's a
I'm
stoppage.
heard.
Yeah. Hey, my favorite strike of the last 20 years was probably the one at Republic Window in Chicago, and the company was actually just going to close the place up, and these guys chained themselves to their machines, and
Wow.
they would not they wouldn't allow the place to close, and
Wow.
so it was just it was a pretty radical step, but it was very productive. They wound up saving the company.
So now a recent example of the railroad workers. I mean, this was in the news for a week, and in our 24-hour news cycle, it was a blip, and people that weren't affected by it just forgot about it. But you had told me off air that railroad workers were, in your words, quote, railroaded by the U.S. government.
Yeah, it was a pretty good one, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
right. So explain to me what went down with that, and why you're kind of being critical. Not kind of, you're very critical on Biden's handling of this.
Yes. Well, what happened was, first of all, I mean, I don't want to just wail on President Biden and his administration, because the Republicans don't want sick leave for anybody, basically.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
right.
so the fact that the company was going to, or the companies, the railroad companies were willing to grant one sick day to their people, they considered a radical step, and I think the Biden administration also considered it, well, better than nothing. And so what happened was the unions wanted, I think, 7 sick days, and they were holding out. We're going to strike over it, and the Biden administration intervened and prevented the strike from going through. They said, we can't allow the railroads to close. It's a matter of the economic security of the country, and so we were going to impose this contract that was voted down by the members. And it's it should go without saying that pretty significantly kneecapped not only the railroad union, but potentially other unions that are going to be looking at that example that he's set now, and possibly not strike when otherwise they would be willing to.
Yeah, and this all could have been avoided if the Democrats would have listened to the people and put Bernie Sanders in the presidency.
Well, there you go.
So,
but that also, I want to stress also that this sick leave issue, while it's a big issue, everybody should have paid sick leave. It was a proxy for a larger issue, which is that the railroad workers had been pounding the company for years, demanding that staffing be left alone or expanded. And instead, the companies have steadily eroded the staffing levels to the point where the railroads are not safe. If you've noticed, there are many more derailings right now. There are many more incidents of leaks and oil cars coming over and spilling. And it's all as a direct result of this staffing issue that's been prevalent in the railroads over the last few years.
It'll be interesting to see how the infrastructure bill affects that. If that's something that's,
Yeah.
if railroads,
Yeah,
I don't know.
well, high-speed rail is the ideal here right now. I mean, I'm no fan of the of our current transportation model, and I think high-speed rail could radically change everything. It could definitely help. If you've got a train that could go from the West Coast to the East Coast in 18 hours, then it changes everything. I
Right.
mean, it changes passenger transportation, and it changes freight. I mean, it changes the ability of suppliers to meet the needs of their customers without resorting to air. And so I'd like to back up a little bit, and I
Sure.
really want to I want to commend the railroad workers for embracing an issue that affected the entire public. At River Bend, the doctors recently threatened to strike. Is and the issue was not wages, it wasn't benefits, it was the desire of the hospital to impose a quota where they were going to have to see 4 patients an hour. And the point that the doctors were making was that there's no way that you can give an accurate diagnosis on somebody in 15 minutes. You sometimes, regrettably, I guess, but
Unless your house, if your house, you can do it.
House.
Yeah.
Yes, that I stand corrected.
Right.
But anyway, 45 minutes of questions are sometimes what it takes in order to provide an accurate diagnosis.
Right.
You're doing detective work is what it amounts to.
Absolutely. So, I want to change gears a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about Springfield in a bit, but I wanted to talk about something just for the behind the scenes that I get a kick out of. Sometimes, how do I word this funny? Because I don't want to say it like I'm complaining, because I love it. Sometimes you'll harass me about basketball. so I love it. I love it. I love it.
Initiate those conversations.
Yeah, and it's so funny because it became something that you knew that I loved, and I learned very quickly that you love is NBA basketball.
Yes.
And so this is completely random, but that's what I love about what I get to do, because here's a city councilor that is messaging me on a Thursday night at 9 p.m. and it's like, did you watch the game?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sean Van Gordon and I talk about video games a little bit.
Yeah.
And you and I talk about NBA basketball. So I wanted to give you a chance to talk about something that I know you love, and that's NBA basketball. So you can't see it on the video because it's, my feet are down here, but I'm wearing Reebok pumps right now with my D Brown shirt. I thought that would be fitting.
Yeah. You pumped up right before
I pumped up, which you have to do that in order if you're going to be ready to go.
Pump the sneakers.
Right. And so I'm a huge Celtics fan, and I know that you enjoy watching the Celtics. It's been great watching Peyton Pritchard.
The Celtics are flying high right now.
Yeah.
They made a nice pickup in the offseason with Brogdon, and I gotta say, you probably watched the Warriors game.
I did
2 nights ago.
I did.
And the Warriors went with what I guess you'd call the modified death lineup. They went with a small lineup to begin with, and they were winning for most of the game.
Yeah.
And so I think what happened was they got gassed at the end, and it's sort of what's been afflicting them the entire season is that the what's happening with the with Warriors is I think they lost a couple of their young stars, Gary Payton Jr. and a guy named Otto Porter.
Yeah.
Otto Porter Jr. also. So losing GP2 and losing Otto Porter, I think, robbed them of a lot of hustle and a lot of grit and a lot of heart. They say you shoot with your legs, right? Well, I think you defend with your heart. And
Yeah,
GP2, Gary Payton and Otto Porter were leading by example. They were hustling and they were getting, just getting down near the ground to play defense. And when you see a teammate doing that, you start playing it that way yourself. And when you lose a teammate like that, it has the opposite effect. So
yeah.
I think if the Warriors had it to do over again, I think they would have paid whatever it takes to get those two guys back.
Sure. The beautiful thing about us finding that this is something that we like to talk about is that with you moving and being across country, we'll still be able to know how to break the ice. So Dustin Bodine, local acupuncturist, he's been a guest a few times. He left a comment that said, 15 minutes is not enough for good medical care. And he would know. I mean, he works with patients all the time, every day, and that's just not enough time.
I'm really glad that somebody actually from the medical field weighed in with their opinion on that, because who am I? I'm
Sure.
somebody who's relying on secondhand accounts on that. So thanks.
And Dusty also, I got something exciting that's going to be happening. Dusty is going to be giving me an acupuncture treatment, and so I've never done it before, and I will see how I'm gonna do something to broadcast that. We'll see how that works. I'm not sure if it's gonna be full on, because me with my shirt off is probably illegal. But
what
to post publicly,
a crime against humanity.
Yeah,
maybe the International Criminal Court's going to have to get involved.
Right. So, but I want to give him a shout out. That'll be at a later date. That'll be in February. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And shout out to Dustin Bodine. He also left a comment that said, "Defend with your heart." That's awesome. So I do like that a lot, and I think you're spot on with that. And he said, "Thanks for the shout out, brother. Thank you so much for listening." Anybody listening to the audio version of this podcast, you can watch it live stream on YouTube and all that stuff too. And when you do, you get to comment on it. So that's a kind of a fun way. So just a reminder that you can listen or you can watch both audio and video versions of the podcast. So yeah, I mean, before we get out of here, I wanted to give you a chance. First of all, I wanted to say thank you, for serving the Springfield community on the council for these past 6 years. I've seen the type of compassion you have. Like at that event, there was some talk, oh no, the generator's not working. And Here comes Leonard Stoehr. He's like, what kind of generator do you need? Let's make this happen. Fortunately for you and for your pocket, it didn't have to happen.
Yeah.
And then I realized later too, I was like, I have a generator.
Yeah. Oh,
I have one in the box in my garage.
Dope.
Yeah. And I didn't even realize it. But the point is that, Johannes and I were so impressed with your willingness to just be like, I'll go right now to Costco, or I'll go to Buy Mart, wherever I got to go, so hopefully whoever we find as a replacement for you has that, willingness to just be like, whatever I got to do.
Well, I maybe it's just like my Southern background, but food is very important. I think you organize with food.
And Mexican food is like, if I had to choose one food that I could only live on for the rest of my life, it would be Mexican food.
I think you and I are together on that. Maybe, it's close between that and Indian food for me, but it's right there. They're both going to kill me eventually, but and I'll go out with a smile on my face.
We're all dying from life itself. So where do you see, before I want to talk about your favorite memory in Springfield, but where do you see the future in Springfield, the near future and beyond?
Well, when Commissioner Bernie was running for the county commission, he had his campaign kickoff at the Plumbers and Steamfitters local in Springfield. It's a big sort of elegantly appointed building, and although not opulent, but very well furnished with classrooms and that kind of thing. And I think it sent a really positive message that he had the event not at a conference center or something like that, but at a local. It sent a message that he was actually going to advocate for workers, and he was as good as his word. He definitely backed it up.
Well, that doesn't say good for the future, because Joe Bernie is no longer.
Okay. Well, it was two separate questions. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So my hope.
That's your favorite memory, is what you're saying? That
was my memory. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for the future, my hope for the future is that we can maintain. Um, when I came here 11 years ago, I was very much struck and taken with what I considered this sort of hard luck working class town that was scrambling just to get by. And so I was, I'm struck now by the fact that we're on the brink of prosperity. And my question is whether this is going to be prosperity for everyone, for you and me, or whether it's going to be prosperity for the already prosperous.
Right.
And so the challenge is I realized going back to when I first came to the town that what I really fell in love with was the struggle itself. And I think most of the people that are tuned in right now are never going to live a life that's entirely free from struggle. I know I'm not going to. And I
Right.
suspect you're not
No,
going to
spent
either.
the rent. That's what it's all about, right? Yeah.
So I would urge everybody who's listening today, don't get caught up in worrying about the end game. Don't get fixated on some easy street outcome. Embrace the struggle, because the struggle is what's beautiful.
That sounds like you're actually cutting a rap album. That's the that's the yeah, that's the
what I'm
ethos
doing
of
right
hip hop,
now. Yeah,
So
could you lay down a beat for me?
right.
I think we're ready.
So yeah, and you had talked about your favorite memory, and my first thought on that with Joe Burney speaking directly to the local, or having an event at the local, is one thing I've learned with this podcast is what is needed on a city council. I had no idea what this was all about. All I knew was it was a bunch of old guys, and
Hey, wait a minute.
yeah, no, I mean, and I learned why. It's because you don't get paid,
right?
And so that it's for somebody that
absolutely true. It's trust fund babies.
Yeah,
it's independently wealthy, and it's retirees.
Right, and there's a reason for that. Now there's a benefit to age and experience. I truly believe this because you've seen how things work. I want to give a shout out to a 16-year-old Devin Lawson that was on my episode a couple weeks ago, because that kid is learning how bills are passed.
No doubt.
More than I could even fathom. And they're 16 years old.
I think Devin, I think Devin knows more about the process than I do.
I'm not even kidding. And so that my point is that there's people all across age spectrums that are crushing it in the knowledge of how this whole thing works. But what I learned, one of the things I learned, is that it's so important to have extreme voices that are unequivocally gonna defend, like you are 100% pro union, right? So in a council, I think that's really cool to have that kind of voice, because you're not the only person, right? So if the knock on you would have been, well, he only is 100%. He's only going to listen to the union. I'm like, okay, we need that representation. Do you know what I'm saying? Like in an executive position, maybe it's a little bit different.
I don't think you often hear from most quarters the objection that counselor is just too pro business.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't come up too often.
But I mean, you can make. I'm sure that it exists in people, though, behind the scenes. They may not advertise it.
I think people feel that and they think that, but it's not expressed.
They don't advertise it. It's definitely a lot easier sell to say I'm pro worker.
Yeah.
Because there's more of them and they're angry.
Yeah.
So, and the businesses will, but I just think that's something that I've learned, that it's beneficial to have, different voices that are like, what about this person? And every single time anything comes up, you're like, what about the workers? What about the workers? And that it's going to be nonstop. And so then other people on the council that are proposing different things are going to be like, how are we going to hear about what the workers are going to want? Because you need that representation in there. And so I think that's just something I've learned from that.
Yep.
You wanted to talk directly before we get out of here. You wanted to talk directly to the people of Springfield.
I think I already did it. I mean, what I really want to do is I just want to just make sure that nobody loses faith in the process. The process is what we got, and just please engage yourself. Go to meetings. Go get engaged with commissions. The Arts Commission right now is begging for members. So get on the city website, sign up for the Arts Commission, sign up for any of the commissions that interest you or that have a vacancy, and just start to get engaged in the working of the city.
I've been considering doing that as far as the art commission, but I'm also considering applying for a grant. and so,
Yeah.
so I'm like, I don't know if I could be on the council,
I think that's it's a potential conflict, but it would only be a conflict with certain. I mean, you could certainly be on the museum committee and get a grant from the city.
Yeah.
I'm
definitely, there is opportunities for people like myself. I've been told by Jim Couples, shout out to Jim Couples, that he's like, dude, there's grants for people like what you do. And so I need to look into that more because I don't really have a revenue stream for the podcast. And it's a little, I'm bringing in money, but it's all through donations. And so this is my senseless plug that if you'd like to support the podcast, that you can go to strpod.com, strpod.com, and you can become a monthly donor on PayPal or Patreon. Patreon's probably what I prefer. I'd like to get away from PayPal, but either one that's easier for you. Or if you'd like to make a one-time donation, you can just go straight to strpod.com and you can donate on PayPal, Patreon, or you can even do Venmo. It's at Spent the Rent. So that's a cool.
And by the way, there's also Spent the Rent swag.
Yeah, I got t-shirts. Right. And I'm going to be working on that this weekend. I think I've got white t-shirts. Yeah. I got some smaller sizes. I got smalls and mediums. And when I bought them, I thought about the fat kids first, like myself, so
suitable for birthday parties and bar mitzvahs.
Right. They're really quality t-shirts too. I've been really impressed. They're very soft.
Are they union made?
I don't know. I get them from.
Say they are.
I'll say yes. I get them from Sticker Mule, and I'm really happy with that service. And if you want to use Sticker Mule, you can go to my website strpod.com, and on the sponsors page, there's a banner that you can click, and we would both get $10 off. So you can do that as well, which is a cool little thing. Go to the website strpod.com and click around, and there's a bunch of cool stuff. Hey, Leonard Stoehr, City Councilor Leonard Stoehr, at least City Councilor for the next, 48 hours or something. So, good luck on your next adventure, hitting the road again. I'm sure that you'll be able to go back and listen to all my past episodes if you've missed any.
Yeah,
you're gonna have some time.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I'm gonna be playing catch up in a lot of regards, and that's certainly going to be one of them. I'm gonna be getting on the air with catching up with the
backlog.
Yeah.
It's really sad to see you go. I've been a big fan of seeing you in the council meetings and knowing that I had an ally on the council.
It's been a pleasure, brother.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
I really enjoyed working with you too.
I'll be excited to see who steps up and if I have access. So I know that like you and Corey Rodley, I could reach out to pretty much at any time, and I'd hear back within a little bit. People have asked me, like, why don't you have people from the opposition on a lot? And I'm like, well, why don't they do their own damn podcast? I mean, if Joe Pictionary wants a podcast, he can make it himself.
Well, and I've had a cordial relationship with Joe, but you're making a cogent point here. I think that they should there should be something along the lines of what was Bozovich's podcast. I don't know. Remember, but everybody's certainly free to set up their own rig.
I'm sure that their podcast would be great. It would be called like "My Hair's on Fire" and my kid is learning alternate facts,
right?
Or whatever. Anyways, we're gonna get out of here
in drag.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Leonard Stoehr. And I look forward to being able to at least keep in contact with you on social media. Hey, shout out to everybody listening, and we're gonna get out of here. Now we're going to end this with a song. This is Lee Jones of Buffalo Romeo with the song Hang 12.
The Lee Jones?
Yeah. Oh, shit. I did that backwards.